Hey guys, welcome back. I wanted to say I'm sorry I was super short in my video last night. I honestly wasn't even sure if it was gonna work or save, and it was super late, and I was like, I don't really feel like putting a lot of effort into the video if it's not even gonna save. So that's why I was very short last night. So I'm so sorry about that. But I just wanted to let you guys know that even though I've been having difficulties with making these videos and keeping up with the Bible over the past week, and then, with my phone being broken, and then my new phone being difficult, and then I went out of town, and I've been super busy, and I still have just been so joyful because I've really just been like leaning in to just being in the moment and trusting in God. And there's something so freeing about just having faith and trusting in God and His plan for you in your life. I mean, I just, until you actually get there and really just really lean into that and just have that faith and trust in God, I'm telling you, there's something so peaceful and joyful and freeing about that. I can't even fully describe it until you've felt it yourself. And so it's been what, like almost 7, 8 months since I brought God into my life. And I'm finally at a place where I'm really just like, okay, yes, like I have faith and trust in Him so much that, like, it's just like, even when I run into any kind of problem, whether big or small, I pray about it. I talk to God about it. I'm just like, hey, like, I'm having, I'm upset about this right now. Help me. Or I'm feeling tempted to eat something bad. Help me. Like, give me strength to say no. Give me strength to not eat this, or, whatever. Um, I'm telling you guys, like, there's something so freeing about it. And I've been much more in the moment. I haven't really been on my phone as much, watching videos. I've been more present, more joyful. Just just I don't know, it's like I feel like this just weight is being lifted off of me the more I lean into God. So, and this has been like what, 7+ months in the making of, me just pushing and pushing and pushing and down this road with God. So I just want to say, like, if there's anyone that's having trouble or you're struggling, don't give up. Keep pushing through. Keep praying. Keep turning to God. Keep leaning on Him. Because I'm telling you, eventually you will have a breakthrough and you will get over that hump. You will get to a place where you will feel this way. I don't know what your timeline is. Yours could be quickly, or longer. I don't know. I don't know what God has planned for you, but for me, it took, you know, about 7 months or so since I brought God into my life and started reading the Bible. Um, but I'm telling you guys, it's worth it. It's worth the time. It's worth it. I'm, sometimes I just want to, like, tell everyone, like, I understand now why people are like, Jesus is the way, like, I get it now, because anything that you're going through in your life, anything, leaning on God, turning to God, praying, like turning to Him and leaning on Him, like, I'm telling you, it's unmatched. You will find nothing on this earth, or in a human, like what God can give you. And if I'm talking right now and you're like, you're not resonating with what I'm saying, you're just not there yet. And that's okay, because you will get there. You will get there. You have to keep going, though. You cannot give up. You have to keep praying. You have to keep reading the Bible. You have to keep seeking God. You have to, because I'm telling you, I don't know what the time frame is for you, I don't know God's plan for you, but I'm telling you, once you get that breakthrough, it's like nothing it's unmatched. You can't find it in another human. You can't find it here on earth. That joy, that light, that love, that healing, you know, God can like do all of that for you. And if you're praying about something, say example, you're praying for some kind of healing or something, you know, maybe you're dealing with anxiety and you're asking for God for help with that, and you're like frustrated and you're like, "Oh, God's not healing it for me." You don't know. Maybe God is working on something behind the scenes that you just don't see. Maybe God's putting you in a situation for you to learn how to handle your anxiety. You just open your mind to the possibilities. Give God a true chance. When people say being a true Christian is having a relationship with God, it's so true. It takes time to get to know him, for him to connect with you and get to know you, and for you guys to talk and spend time together and pray, and you get to know him better through reading the Bible, and just keep pushing through, keep trying, keep praying, do not give up, because I'm telling you, once you get that breakthrough and you start to like really really lean into him and have trust and faith in him, it's like I don't even have a need to be anxious or worry. I'm just like, I wake up now every day and I'm just like, okay, like, let me enjoy the day, enjoy the moment. Let me, and if I run into a problem or a situation or something, I just ask for God for help. I ask him to give me the strength to fight the temptations of the flesh and the enemy, like, don't give up. Like, you will get there. And I'm so excited to see, like, if I'm already feeling this way, and I'm already breaking through this much, I'm like, man, I can't wait to see where I'm at when I do finish the full Bible. Because, I already feel like I've made so much change in my life, in like it in me, in my mind, in my perspective, in the way I see things, the way I handle things, the way I feel, and it's amazing and it's beautiful, and God wants what's best for you, and he wants to help you and love you and guide you, but you have to turn to him. You have to obey him. And I don't mean obey him in like a, you know, like a gross, terrible way that society has made it, view. I mean it as in like a parent, a child kind of obey, like as a parent, when you tell your child, hey, don't touch the stove, you know, don't touch the stove because you're going to burn your hand. You're trying to save your child. But, so when God tells us, not to do something or to do something, it's what's best for us, whether we see it or not. And so I think, you have to kind of look at obeying God in a sense that he's our father and he knows what's best, and we have to trust that. And I think if you can try to see it that way, I think obeying him becomes a lot easier, because then you're just like, okay, like, God's not going to ask me to do something that's going to hurt me, that's going to harm myself. It's God wants what's best for me. So if he's asking me to do something or to not do something, whether I see it or not, there's a reason for it. So I don't know. And like I said, guys, this isn't something that happened overnight. It's taken me about 7 months to get to this place. And I mean, if you've just found my videos, you're more than welcome to start at day one and work your way through, and you can see the progress for yourself. It's up to you. But I can tell you that I'm really, really starting to understand now people who have been in their faith and with God for a long time, I now understand why they say, you know, all the things that they say that sounded crazy to me before. It's starting to make sense. My eyes are being opened. I'm seeing now. Um, and it's wild. It's just so great. It's so freeing. I feel so free. Like I felt like I was a prisoner in my own mind for all my life. And now to be being set free from that is like, I just, I can't even fully describe it. It's beautiful. Everything, I go outside in the backyard and I've seen the sky and the sun and the clouds and the blue sky, how many, like every day for my whole life. And now I go outside and I look at it and I'm just like, wow, like it's such a beautiful day, like I just see things so different now. I'm more in the moment. I'm more like present. I feel so much more free because I don't have that weight drowning me. If you're in the ocean or the water and you're drowning, you're not going to be like, "Oh, wow, it's a beautiful day." No, you're drowning. You're like, "Oh my God, I'm drowning. I need help. I'm drowning." So to finally be out of that and to be on the beach in the nice warm sun and the sand, chilling, with God's light and love on me, I can finally stop and be like, oh, wow, like how beautiful is life? How beautiful is life around me and everything? Because I'm not drowning anymore because God saved me. And I just can't tell you, like, if you resonate with that at all and you feel like you're drowning in your own life or your mind and you feel like a prisoner in your own body and mind, I have gone through multiple therapists, doctors, medication, natural remedies, tried, exercising, eating better, just being around good people. I've tried bad coping skills, drinking, smoking weed, um, you know, way worse things, tried to take my life a couple times. Um, I mean, just countless things. I'm telling you guys, like, God's the answer. This is your sign. If you're struggling with anything, God is the answer. Period. End of story. Seek God and you will find healing. And you will find help. And you will find love. And you will find fulfillment and purpose and joy. And no, it's not easy. And it's not something that happens overnight. But wouldn't you want to try something that has the possibility of setting you free from drowning, from being a prisoner in your own mind? And it doesn't cost you a dime. All it does is cost you a little bit of your time each day, praying and reading the Bible. You don't even have to go to church. Just seek God. Just find some privacy in your car or your bathroom or your room or your closet, which is what I'm in right now. I'm in my closet. And just you don't even have to, there's no specific prayer or nothing. Just say, hey, God, help me. But like, be genuine about it. God knows your heart. He knows if you're not genuinely seeking him. You have to be genuinely looking for God and seeking him and saying, like, help me. And I'm telling you guys, your world will be transformed if you give him a chance. And you have to give him a chance, because if God doesn't answer you right away, then there's a reason for that. There's a reason. Don't give up. Give God a chance. Give him some time to answer you, because God's timing is perfect. So he will answer you in the way and the time that he sees is the right time and perfect time and way. So, if you've prayed and you've asked God to show himself to you, or reveal himself to you or answer a certain prayer or something, and he hasn't done it right away, or whatever, like, keep trying, keep praying, keep leaning into him, keep reading the Bible, keep trying, keep seeking him, because I'm telling you, like, when he does finally reveal himself to you and you really, like, open your heart to him, it's magical. It's, there's something so just beautiful and freeing and amazing about him healing you internally. I don't know, guys. I prayed right now while the video was loading, and I just, the love, I feel the love and the light right now. So I don't know. I just had to share. Just had to share. Okay, I'm going to stop talking and let's do today's chapters.
Now it happened on the third day that Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace, across from the king's house, while the king sat on his royal throne in the royal house, facing the entrance of the house. So it was, when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, that she found favor in his sight, and the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Then Esther went near and touched the top of the scepter. And the king said to her, "What do you wish, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given to you, up to half the kingdom." So Esther answered, "If it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come today to the banquet that I have prepared for him." Then the king said, "Bring Haman quickly, that he may do as Esther has said." So the king and Haman went to the banquet that Esther had prepared. At the banquet of wine, the king said to Esther, "What is your petition? It shall be granted you. What is your request? Up to half the kingdom. It shall be done." Then Esther answered and said, "My petition and request is this: if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, then let the king and Haman come to the banquet which I will prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do as the king has said." So Haman went out that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, and that he did not stand or tremble before him, he was filled with indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home, and he sent and called for his friends and his wife Zeresh. Then Haman told them of his great riches, the multitude of his children, everything in which the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the officials and servants of the king. Moreover, Haman said, "Besides, Queen Esther invited no one but me to come in with the king to the banquet that she prepared, and tomorrow I am again invited by her, along with the king. Yet all this avails me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate." Then his wife Zeresh and all his friends said to him, "Let a gallows be made, 50 cubits high, and in the morning suggest to the king that Mordecai be hanged on it. Then go merrily with the king to the banquet." And the thing pleased Haman, so he had the gallows made.
I don't understand why Haman is so bothered by Mordecai and the fact that he's like a Jew and the other Jews. Like, I don't understand why Haman is so like bothered by Mordecai. Like, I don't get it. Like, is it the fact that he's just a Jew and he sees him as less than because he didn't tremble at him or bow to him? Like, I don't understand why he's so bothered by him.
That night the king could not sleep. So one was commanded to bring the book of the records of the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, 2 of the king's eunuchs, the doorkeepers who had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. Then the king said, What honor or dignity has been bestowed on Mordecai for this?" And the king's servants who attended him said, "Nothing has been done for him." So the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the king's palace to suggest that the king hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. The king's servants said to him, "Haman is there, standing in the court." And the king said, "Let him come in." So Haman came in, and the king asked him, "What shall be done for the man whom the king delights to honor?" Now Haman thought in his heart, "Whom would the king delight to honor more than me?" And Haman answered the king, "For the man whom the king delights to honor, let a royal robe be brought, which the king has worn, and a horse on which the king has ridden, which has a royal crest placed on its head. Then let this robe and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that he may array the man whom the king delights to honor. Then parade him on horseback through the city square, and proclaim before him, 'Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor.'" Then the king said to Haman, "Hurry, take the robe and the horse, as you have suggested, and do so for Mordecai the Jew, who sits within the king's gate. Leave nothing undone of all that you have spoken." So Haman took the robe and the horse, arrayed Mordecai, and led him on horseback through the city square, and proclaimed before him, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." Afterward, Mordecai went back to the king's gate. But Haman hurried to his house, mourning and with his head covered. When Haman told his wife, Zeresh, and all his friends everything that had happened to him, his wise men and his wife Zeresh said to him, "If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of Jewish descent, you will not prevail against him, but will surely fall before him." While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs came and hastened to bring Haman to the banquet which Esther had prepared. So the king and Haman went to dine with Queen Esther. And on the second day, at the banquet of wine, the king again said to Esther, "What is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted you. And what is your request? Up to half the kingdom. It shall be done." Then Queen Esther answered and said, "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we have been sold, my people and I, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. Had we been sold as male and female slaves, I would have held my tongue, although the enemy could never compensate for the king's loss." So King Ahasuerus answered and said to Queen Esther, "Who is he, and where is he, who would dare presume in his heart to do such a thing?" And Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." So Haman was terrified before the king and queen. Then the king arose in his wrath from the banquet of wine and went into the palace garden. But Haman stood before Queen Esther, pleading for his life, for he saw that evil was determined against him by the king.
What I don't understand is in yesterday's chapters, Haman made a decree, but wouldn't that decree have had to been signed off by the king? Or was that when the king gave him his signet ring? And then, like, how are you sending out a decree without the king reading it? Or did the king just trust Haman and was just like, okay, do what you want to do, right? Like, that would be the only way that Haman could have gotten the decree out to kill all the Jews without the king seeing. I think it was when he gave him his signet ring and then was like, okay, do what you must or whatever, and basically just gave him the authority to, like, do things in his name. It's terrible. I don't know. If I was like, I would be all over that. I'd be like, no, nothing is going on without me knowing or seeing or reading.
When the king returned from the palace garden to the place of the banquet of wine, Haman had fallen across the couch where Esther was. Then the king said, "Will he also assault the queen while I am in the house?" As the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Now Harbona, one of the eunuchs, said to the king, "Look, the gallows, 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good on the king's behalf, is standing at the house of Haman." Then the king said, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath subsided. On that day, King Ahasuerus gave Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. So the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther appointed Mordecai over the house of Haman. Now Esther spoke again to the king, fell down at his feet, and implored him with tears to counteract the evil of Haman the Agagite, and the scheme which he had devised against the Jews. And the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, "If it pleases the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seems right to the king, and I am pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to annihilate the Jews who are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that will come to my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my countrymen?" Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and Mordecai the Jew, "Indeed, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hanged him on the gallows because he tried to lay his hand on the Jews. You yourselves write a decree concerning the Jews, as you please, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For whatever is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's signet ring, no one can revoke." So the king's scribes were called at that time in the 3rd month, which is the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day. And it was written, according to all that Mordecai commanded, to the Jews, the satraps, the governors, and the princes of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces in all, to every province in its own script, to every people in their own language, and to the Jews in their own script and language. And he wrote in the name of King Ahasuerus, sealed it with the king's signet ring, and sent letters by couriers on horseback, riding on royal horses, bred from swift steeds. By these letters, the king permitted the Jews, who were in every city, to gather together and protect their lives, to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the forces of any people or province that would assault them, both little children and women, and to plunder their possessions. On one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, a copy of the document was to be issued as a decree in every province and published for all people, so that the Jews would be ready on that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. The couriers who rode on royal horses went out, hastened and pressed on by the king's command, and the decree was issued in Shushan the citadel. So Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, with a great crown of gold, and a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness, joy and honor. And in every province and city, wherever the king's command and decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a holiday. Then many of the people of the land became Jews, because fear of the Jews fell upon them. Now in the 12th month, that is, the month of Adar, on the 13th day, The time came for the king's command and his decree to be executed. On the day that the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, the opposite occurred, in that the Jews themselves overpowered those who hated them. The Jews gathered together in their cities throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus to lay hands on those who sought their harm, and no one could withstand them, because fear of them fell upon all people. And all the officials of the provinces, the satraps, the governors, and all those doing the king's work helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's palace, and his fame spread throughout all the provinces, for this man, Mordecai, became increasingly prominent. Thus the Jews defeated all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, with slaughter and destruction, and did what they pleased with those who hated them. And in Shushan the citadel, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. Also, Parshandatha, Dalphon, Aspatha, Poratha, Adalia, Aridatha, Parmashta, Arasai, Aradai, and Vajezatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews. They killed, but they did not lay a hand on the plunder. On that day, the number of those who were killed in Shushan the citadel was brought to the king. And the king said to Queen Esther, "The Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the citadel, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is your petition? It shall be granted to you. Or what is your further request? It shall be done." Then Esther said, "If it pleases the king, let it be granted to the Jews who are in Shushan to do again tomorrow according to today's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on the gallows." So the king commanded this to be done. The decree was issued in Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. And the Jews who were in Shushan gathered together again on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and killed 300 men at Shushan, but they did not lay a hand on the plunder. The remainder of the Jews in the king's provinces gathered together and protected their lives, had rest from their enemies, and killed 75,000 of their enemies, but they did not lay a hand on the plunder. This was on the 13th day of the month of Adar. And on the 14th day of the month, they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews who were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day, as well as on the 14th. And on the 15th day of the month, they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore, the Jews of the villages who dwelt in the unwalled towns celebrated the 14th day of the month of Adar with gladness and feasting as a holiday, and for sending presents to one another. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters to all the Jews, near and far, who were in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, to establish among them that they should celebrate yearly the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar, as the days on which the Jews had rest from their enemies, as the month which was turned from sorrow to joy for them, and from mourning to a holiday, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, of sending presents to one another and gifts to the poor. So the Jews accepted the custom which they had begun, as Mordecai had written to them, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to annihilate them, and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letter that this wicked plot which Haman had devised against the Jews should return on his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. So they called these days Purim, after the name Pur. Therefore, because of all the words of this letter, what they had seen concerning this matter, and what had happened to them, the Jews established and imposed it upon themselves and their descendants, and all who would join them, that without fail they should celebrate these 2 days every year, according to the written instructions and according to the prescribed time, that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, that these days of Purim should not fail to be observed among the Jews, and that the memory of them should not perish among their descendants. Then Queen Esther, the daughter of Abihail, with Mordecai the Jew, wrote with full authority to confirm this second letter about Purim. And Mordecai sent letters to all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim at their appointed time, as Mordecai the Jew and Queen Esther had prescribed for them, and as they had decreed for themselves and their descendants concerning matters of their fasting and lamenting. So the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. And King Ahasuerus imposed tribute on the land and on the islands of the sea. Now all the acts of his power and his might, and the account of the greatness of Mordecai, to which the king advanced him, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was second to King Ahasuerus, and was great among the Jews, and well received by the multitude of his brethren, seeking the good of his people, and speaking peace to all his countrymen.
So that's actually the end of the book of Esther. That's the end. Tomorrow we're starting on, I think, the book Job, or Job. I don't know how you say it. But I wanted to mention that I found it super, super interesting that not once was, like, God mentioned in the book of Esther. Like, nowhere did he give a command or a message to a prophet, or like he wasn't mentioned at all. This was literally just a story about Esther and the Jews and Mordecai and the king. Like, I thought that was super interesting. I think a lot of people, from what I've gathered so far, people who are judgmental of the Bible, that haven't read it for themselves or have tried, they don't see that a lot of the Bible is just telling you what happened. Doesn't mean God was okay with everything that happened, or he commanded for all these things to happen, like the murder and all of that. Like, this is just an account, and it's telling us what happened. So, you have to be careful with what you're reading, and you have to make sure you separate with what's just detailing what happened and what actually God ordered and wanted. He said, okay, to do this, this, and this. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. But, okay, guys, well, I have to get going. But, good chapters today. It helped explain everything I was confused about yesterday, so that's good. And we will see you for the next book tomorrow. Bye, guys.